Welcome to this explainer. Today we're tackling something so many of us struggle with: breaking the cycle of painful relationships. We're going to use our source material to really uncover the subconscious reasons we end up staying in unfulfilling or even damaging dynamics. And look, the goal today isn't to point fingers or assign blame. It's about getting clarity. We want to understand the psychological mechanics under the hood so you can finally step off that merry-go-round. So have you ever wondered why you just can't seem to walk away, even when a part of you absolutely knows you aren't being valued? It's a really painful place to be, and I want to validate that pain right out of the gate. The source material makes it super clear that staying in these situations, it's rarely just about love. It's actually driven by much deeper, often completely hidden psychological mechanics. It all comes down to how our brains process connection and fear.
Which leads to the big question: why on earth do we repeat these painful relationships? It's so easy to beat yourself up, right? You might think, man, I just have terrible taste, or there's just something fundamentally broken about me. But the research completely flips this on its head. Choosing the wrong partners over and over is actually a learned habit. It's a pattern that was established way before you even met your current partner. It's basically a default setting we picked up during our upbringing, not some inherent character flaw.
And a huge part of this learned habit is mistaking loneliness for love. Think about it. When we feel a deep, aching sense of isolation, any connection can feel like an absolute lifeline. We end up confusing a temporary drop in our anxiety with genuine, deep affection. It's kind of like a psychological slot machine. If you only feel valued in those brief, totally unpredictable moments when a distant partner decides to toss you some attention, your brain gets completely hooked on that intermittent reward. We get trapped because we think that fleeting hit of relief from our own loneliness is what love is actually supposed to feel like. But the difference between those two feelings is just staggering. Finding temporary relief means you're enduring a ton of pain just to get brief scraps of kindness. You're constantly reading the room, walking on eggshells, trying to manage their moods. True love, though? True love brings a lasting sense of safety. It means being able to just be yourself without the constant looming threat of the relationship suddenly ending. Toxic dynamics just offer a brief pause from the exact anxiety they create in the first place.
To really understand why we accept this temporary relief, we have to dig into your past rules. Our childhood environments literally wired our brains. If you grew up in a home where you had to constantly read the adults' moods just to stay safe, or where affection felt super conditional, your brain learned to view high-stress, anxious dynamics as normal. In a twisted way, that chaos feels familiar, and our brains, they notoriously mistake familiarity for safety.
Just listen to these deeply ingrained internal monologues. If I endure this, I won't be hated. Or, if I'm useful, I'm needed. These silent childhood rules are secretly driving the car, dictating our adult choices. If you believe deep down that your worth is completely tied to your usefulness, you're naturally going to attract partners who just want to use you. Plus, because your nervous system is essentially hardwired for this high-stakes stress, a calm, healthy, supportive partner will probably feel totally boring or even unappealing to you at first. Okay, so how do we fix this? What's the antidote? Surprisingly, the source text points out that the cure isn't rushing out to find a better partner. The actual circuit breaker is intentional alone time. Yep, spending deliberate, focused time completely by yourself. You literally have to remove yourself from the constant, exhausting pressure of adapting to other people's needs before you can even begin to figure out what it is that you actually want. And this gives us a really practical framework for self-discovery. First, you've got to step away from others' eyes, meaning stop obsessing over how you're being perceived. Second, ask yourself what you genuinely want, totally independent of anyone else's expectations. And third, write it down. By walking through these specific steps, you're actively hitting pause on that people-pleasing programming, and you finally start turning up the volume on your own internal voice. Now, when you do this journaling, it has to be brutally honest. I'm talking about writing things like, I absolutely hated it, or I was terrified, or I really didn't want to do that. I need to remind you, this process is absolutely not about writing neat, perfect, socially acceptable answers. No way. It's about validating those messy, uncomfortable, and frankly sometimes ugly truths that you've been suppressing for years just to keep the peace. Your true feelings finally need some oxygen. Once you actually know your own underlying rules and you've faced those suppressed feelings, everything starts to shift. We can finally start redefining what a healthy partner actually looks like out in the real world. We transition away from looking for people who trigger our familiar anxieties and start looking for those who genuinely value us. But let's be real. What does a person who truly values you actually look like in practice?
The contrast here is everything. A toxic partner uses guilt, totally ignores your boundaries, and offers conditional affection. But a safe partner? They treat your feelings as valid, real experiences. They don't just say sweet words when things are easy. They respect your boundaries when things get tough. They don't panic, withdraw their love, or punish you just because you happen to disagree with them on something.
Finding that safe partner also completely changes how you open up to them. You start by sharing a small story first. Then you observe. Do they laugh? Do they dismiss it? And crucially, do they use it against you in an argument a week later? Trusting someone is a gradual process of observation. Your deep, traumatic stories are meant for confirming existing trust. They are absolutely not a bargaining chip you toss out desperately trying to win someone's affection. Which brings us to the final phase in this explainer, how to actually nurture these safe relationships. Because once you've identified your patterns, taken that time for yourself, and recognized what a safe partner looks like, you have to actively build that dynamic. And this means stepping away from that exhausting, ego-driven game of constantly trying to win someone's approval and moving toward a much more grounded, mature kind of connection.
I absolutely love this definition of self-reliance because it just changes the game entirely. It doesn't mean being a lone wolf or never relying on a single soul. The source defines it beautifully as not completely delegating your feelings and judgments to others. Being independent doesn't mean being alone. It means owning your choices. It means you don't need another person's reaction to validate your own reality or to tell you how you should feel. So I want you to pause and reflect on this right now. Before you send that next text, before you finalize those plans, ask yourself, am I reaching out right now because I'm lonely and anxious, or because I genuinely truly want to see this person? Checking your true motivation in real time is the absolute key to stopping the cycle of approval seeking. It puts you firmly back in the driver's seat of your own life.
And when you're in the driver's seat, you can start building a truly safe relationship using a few foundational behaviors. You say no when you need to, and you do it without guilt. You maintain your own boundaries. You respect their feelings, but, and this is so vital, you do not absorb their feelings as your own. You step away from the ego mindset of trying to win or lose an argument. Real love is actually quite grounded and quiet. It's built on these small, daily acts of mutual respect, where neither person has to constantly perform just to be worthy of love. This quote perfectly summarizes the core thesis of our explainer. Relationships change from something you are chosen for to something you build together. I mean, what a paradigm shift, right? You are no longer sitting passively on a shelf, just waiting and hoping to be picked by someone who might drop you at any second. You are an active architect of your own peace, consciously choosing a partner to construct a life alongside. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question. What is one small discomfort you're feeling in your current relationship? Or maybe your most recent one, right now? I really challenge you to take out a journal today, step away from everyone else's eyes, and just write down your honest answer. Because that simple act of acknowledging your discomfort is the very first empowering step toward breaking your cycle for good. Keep questioning, keep reflecting, and remember, you have the power to define your own rules.